Welcome to Driving the Line, the pursuit of safety, where we talk about the real issues out on the road, focus on safe driving, and learn industry best practices from your hosts Kenny Ray, Mike Bohan, and Jim Seibert, in the hopes that by driving the line, we get more drivers home safe and sound. This podcast was made possible by Marsh McLennan Agency.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Driving the Line, the trucking podcast that is always in the pursuit of safety. I'm Jim Seibert, along with my friends and co-hosts Kenny Ray and Mike Bohan, and we are extremely glad that you chose to listen in on us today. Today's topic, trucking associations. Memberships close to your home at the state level or on a federal level, they are important. They are your voice, your representation in the halls where the laws are made and where rulings are given. I'm a member of a few different state ag-related associations, as well as a few that are on the national level. I have found them to be full of like-minded people who care about the industry's success and full of people, for me, importantly, that are willing and able to help me succeed to the betterment of the whole industry, one company at a time. Gentlemen, today we have a special treat. We are joined by pillars of the trucking industry, legends of their respective state trucking associations, and champions of safety all around. Mr. Kenny Ray, would you introduce your guest?
I'd be honored to, Jim, and thank you for that lead in. The analogy you made of belonging to ag associations, because you're our ag safety rep, we have like associations in the trucking industry. At state level, some states are big enough to have local associations, and then clearly we have several national associations. I'm honored today to have my friend and a professional peer be one of our guests on our Driving the Line podcast, and that is Mr. John Esparza. John is the president and the CEO of the Texas Trucking Association. He is a proud graduate of Texas Tech University, has formerly served on the Board of Regents for Texas Tech, and continues to serve in leadership roles anytime his university calls on him to do so. He's a fourth generation West Texan. His family is a legacy family in our state that actually his heritage predates Texas as a state and even predates Texas as a republic, as an independent nation. He has a long list of accomplishments. He formerly served as senior advisor to former Governor Rick Perry here in the state of Texas. But the thing I'm most proud of is that John is a fierce advocate for safety and for the trucking industry, both at state level and the national level. He's a constant supporter of our Texas Trucking Association Safety Management Council. And he's my friend and a trusted colleague and mentor to me and many other people in the safety industry in Texas. And so, Mr. Esparza, it is an honor and a privilege, sir, to have you on our Driving the Line podcast today. And I look forward in a few minutes to hearing your thoughts as Mike Bohan first introduces his guest.
Well, yeah, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Tom Crawford, the president and CEO of the Missouri Trucking Association. Tom's been serving in this role since 2006. And what I think is really interesting about Tom's background that he has been connected to the trucking industry since he was a kid. Tom grew up in the trucking industry, working with his dad and his granddad and the family-owned trucking company, delivering gasoline throughout Southwest Missouri. So he's got that history with our industry, like many of us do. Kenny, it reminds me of your history with this industry, and Tom's just got that aspect to his life and growing up and being connected to the industry that I think is just really special. And then Tom went off to college, got his bachelor's degree of science in accounting from Southwest Missouri State University, and then from there went on to get his law degree from the University of Missouri. He started in state government, working as an attorney for the Missouri Senate, drafting legislation and providing counsel to several committees, including the Senate Ways and Means Committee and the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules. Also served as the Assistant General Counsel and Director of Tax Policy for the Missouri Chamber of Commerce, the Assistant Director of State and Local Government Affairs for Missouri Farm Bureau, and the Director of Legislative Services for Missouri Healthcare Associations before coming full circle back to the trucking industry. And one detail I didn't want to leave out is that, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but you still hold a Class A CDL. Is that right?
I do. Yes, sir.
And when I was reading through your bio, you said that the statute of limitations is up now, but maybe there was a time in your life when you were operating a truck that you started a little younger than maybe what you should have, right?
Yes, sir. My dad and granddad hauled fuel, as you mentioned, and one of my first memories in truck was getting up at 3 a.m. and going to deliver fuel, sitting on the jumper seat, no seat belt, no whatever. The fun part of the trip for us was on the way back, after we'd do the little rest break to check tires and all that kind of stuff. We would get to jump in the driver's seat and drive for about 10 or 15 miles on a little 2-lane road that you drive today and you're like, what in the world were they thinking? Because we started driving in their lap when you couldn't reach them. So I'm talking kindergarten, first grade. And then by the time you could reach the pedals, which was young, you got in and you started shifting. And I remember it was really a big time when you pull it behind somebody and you're looking to pass and your dad goes, yeah, go ahead and do it. You're old enough now. So you go out and pass and he goes, all right, you can pull back. I mean, it was quite the learning by the seat of your pants. So probably want to edit this on a safety podcast.
Yeah. This is a safety podcast. No, different times for sure, but that's just it's just cool stories that you have as far as just growing up in this industry and especially with your family like that. It's a special thing. But well, guys, as our guest, Tom, John, we can't even begin to tell you how honored we are that you all joined us. Truly a couple of giants in the industry, and we're glad you're here. We're fortunate that you're both willing to give a little bit of your time today. And where we wanted to kind of start our conversation was to get your thoughts, both of you, on the ATRI report that came out in August of 2023, looking at the relationship between motor carrier safety and involvement in or lack thereof with state and or national associations. Now, you've both been doing this a long time. You're both exceptional leaders within your respective associations and states, and you've seen and affected the motor carrier landscape in your states. Did this report ring true to you, to what you've seen in your states? Is there that correlation between the folks that are members of your associations and those that maybe were before or maybe never have been?
This report, at least for me and our organization, I think it kind of mirrored what we thought was happening anyway. And so we were glad that ATRI and the council kind of prioritized this research and put it out there. I know just in talking with our commercial carriers enforcement division within the Highway Patrol, they would tell us from time to time, hey, you can always tell somebody that's a part of the council, somebody that's a part of your association and kind of participates and it's always a moving target. It's always working with human beings. So you're always going to be just short of perfect. But he goes, you can always tell folks that are trying to do the right thing, when they have a bad day or something happens, you can just see that you can see what happened. You can see what missed. You can see what could be fixed. And I think for us, seeing this report just helps to clarify and helps solidify kind of what we thought was happening anyway. Don't you agree, John?
Tom, I do. First, I've certainly got to mention Kenny. If there's so many kind words that should be said about Kenny. It is people like him and you all in this industry and what you're doing today. You honor us by having us on this program first and foremost. The more that we can communicate about safety, the better off we all are. And it is one of the greatest philosophies that I know that I hold, that I know you guys do, and Tom and I got here just about the same time from our areas, and Tom, even in hearing that story, I chuckle because I have very similar memories. I'm a great grandson, and son of truck drivers myself, my owner operators, and in the aggregate industry, building highways out in the western part of the state during the post-war 50s during the Ike Eisenhower administration. There's just so much rich history in trucking that I'm certainly also proud of. And if not for folks like Kenny who are so hands-on and so giving with our members and like-minded professionals in this industry in our state. And I know you've got similar stories in Missouri, Tom. It's really the most critical part of our success. I mean, we can't do it in Texas without key people like Kenny, like Lance Schillenberg in our office, who's just an absolute, we couldn't exist without him and do what we do on the side of safety. And that's what it is. It's surrounding ourselves with people. And to Mike's question about the report, people's first, but data is second. And when I'm looking at some data this morning that was sent over to me from our DPS captain on Mexican LFC holders in the state of Texas, and something that we're monitoring closely. And it is that data that frankly vilifies us. Didn't we all just kind of pump our arms in the air, Tom, when we've heard about the study and then heard it was going on and told ourselves, okay, here it is. We're about to find out whether all this, we know it pays off, but we want to see it in data so we can take that back to our state capitals, take that back to our state legislators, to our congressional delegation, and hold up that sheet of paper and say, look, I know you believe in associations and the work that associations do, but here's the proof about how we impact everyday citizens in their lives on our highways in our states, and especially coming from a state in Texas where we have not had a deathless day on our state highways since the year 2000. And that number continues to increase. And we sit there and watch and study, okay, what about commercial vehicle involved accidents and fatalities? That, of course, that is our core. That's what we focus on. But at the end of the day, those numbers compiled with the numbers that we have just seen through ATRI really provide us a different platform to communicate the importance of safety in our own states. And to me, that makes our jobs much, much easier.
John, I think you made a good point there that I think a lot of times we don't think about when we're talking about the trucking industry and safety, that kind of stuff, is how if we do things right in the trucking industry, it protects lives outside of the trucking industry as well. There's a lot of folks out there on the roads with our members, with the folks that we work with every day, and that's something that we talk about within our group is, just that concept of, hey, we want to make sure everybody gets home safe at night, and that includes not just the guys driving the trucks, but everybody else that we're out there on the road with. So I just really appreciated that comment that you made, because that's something that's important to us. That's why we do what we do, is we're trying to protect life out there on the road, and that's everybody. So one of the things in that research report that came out that I wanted to kind of get your guys' take on is the impact that some of this research may have on how enforcement or regulatory bodies might look at carriers or even insurance companies. Should there be any kind of credit for being involved in a state association or a national association? John, what do you think about that aspect of it? Is there something to that, where if you've got a motor carrier that is involved in a member of an association, that they might be looked at from either the FMCSA or the state association with a little bit better viewpoint than maybe somebody who's not a member?
Absolutely. And if we had, and many of you are so experienced on the insurance side as well, then we all know, and I can make this statement as a quote unquote non-insurance professional, but they will tell you that risk follows data. And I've seen companies that support our industry that are building their success on information just like that. And one in particular that provides a service in a monitoring service effectively, they have been able to receive a much better insurance rate and provide a much better insurance, pass along that better insurance rate to their motor carriers because of the risk pool that they put together based on the technology that they use is recognized by a major insurer and said, you know what, we've run these numbers for the last 2-3 years, whatever that quadrant of data might be, and it tells us that we can reduce your rate because your accident profile is such, it looks so much different than everybody else out there, that the rates should be different. And we utilized that here in Texas a few sessions ago when we worked extensively on tort reform, when we were able to prove that you had basically a Texas penalty. If you were running trucks through the state of Texas, your insurer would look at that and say, well, you know what, 2/3 of your business is in the state of Texas, and the environment down there for accidents and for litigation is so horrible that we have a special rate for those miles, and we're going to apply it to you if you want to continue to run in Texas. So we were able to point to that with data and correct some things because we could back it up with that information.
Well, I think John nailed it on the head, as he typically does. I think the report pointed out the correlation between membership and safety. And I was going to go just a slightly different angle. The only reason being is because it happened last night / this morning. As we're sitting here, Mike, in Missouri and getting ready for the deep freeze, the Chiefs going to be the all-time record low. The governor's office just yesterday evening, due to some work with our association and other associations that have fuel haulers, they issued an executive order, and they did it based on what they know to be true as well about our members and their safety, their prioritization for getting folks home at night. But when you look at the world out in front of them and what our public is facing this weekend is, we for sure don't want people running out of heating fuel for their houses. And you don't want the excuse to be a trucker sitting on the side of the road trying to get his restart while somebody's running out of fuel. So, for years we've had the governor's office and the administration reach out to us and others that haul fuel and say, okay, what are you guys seeing? And so we're like, hey, it's projected to be a problem. You need to keep these folks moving. And so it was issued last night. The text that came in, I know you guys said to shut it off, and I thought I did, but it dinged on me here. But the text was from Angie, who had heard from one of our members that stuff is backing up in Moberly. So thank goodness that we have that the drivers now have with them, so they can get the job done and keep our citizens safe and warm through this bitter cold weekend.
And that's one thing that, Tom, is to kind of add on to what you're saying is we've got to keep that trucking moves America forward, right? I mean, that's our motto. We're keeping this country moving, but we got to do it safely. And I know you guys are both such huge advocates of safety, and especially within your associations. I kind of want to jump to the next question I want to pose to you guys is the role of your safety management council, or for us here in Missouri, it's our Council of Safety Supervisors. I know you're both involved in those. How important is that group to what you guys do within your respective associations and states?
I'll chime in. They're our brain trust. That's how we refer to them in the office when we're kicking around different things that are coming at us from the legislature or our various state agencies, and they contact us and, John, what do y'all think about this? Me and a couple of folks here in the office are put our heads together will be the first step. And the second step is, hey, let's get this in front of the brain trust. And that's code for internally for let's reach out to Kenny. Let's reach out to a group of Kenny's colleagues that we know we can ask practically, how will this affect you? What are you hearing out there? And that starts that conversation that is the basis of forming policy. I mean, it is really simple, and I can describe it in the easiest of terms. When we created an entire state agency in the state of Texas so many years ago, during a time when government was shrinking, we blew an agency up, but we did it for the reason of customer service. And when we sat down and helped craft that, which we were grateful to be a part of, we put an 11-member group together and took people from all facets that would touch vehicles, that would touch infrastructure. One of them has to be in statute a trucker. And the way that works, because we've got some good folks that have been in that position, is that when they sit around a table with their 10 other colleagues and an issue of trucking comes up, 10 people look to the one trucker and says, how does this affect you? And that person's voice is a powerful voice in a group of 11. And we're there to back up those conversations and those discussions as an association and bring our folks in when it's necessary to be able to provide the support for substantive changes in policy that have been, I think, really good over the last dozen years plus here, and much needed for all of us as far as any of the states go.
I would completely echo that and basically try to say it a different but similar way. Our council, Mike, as you know, as a former past chair of the council, and thank God you were, because I think you helped us navigate a time between some staff changes. It is a group. If it's not the best thing we do, I don't know what number 2 is, but it's got to be in the top 2 things that we do for our membership. And the surveys we do, customer surveys, member surveys, it's safety and it's legislative. Those are, depending on the hot topic at the moment, maybe legislative clips them in the reasons they join. But I can't tell you how many members we have with, the same safety director got a new job and that company wasn't a member, but that safety director, it was so important to them being able to do their job that they got that company to become a member because of the safety council, the Council of Safety Supervisors. So I would ditto John's comments. We don't have as structured a process in Missouri for input by a trucker on a board that oversees something, but motor carrier services came about because of our industry trying to find that customer service connection within government somewhere. And that the agency that regulated trucking, pre-regulation days and post-regulation days, it bounced all over the map between Department of Revenue, Public Service Commission, all the different places until just prior to my coming in 2006 and 2003, they opened it up within MoDOT. And I think, Mike, you've been around and involved in this process enough to know that placing that department, that customer service, that division, if you will, within the Department of Transportation fundamentally changed the dynamics of the relationship with our DOT and our trucking. Overnight, we became the DOT's biggest customer. And having Jan Scobie and Scott and Aaron and all the people that have had that position in DOT, there may not be truckers, but they're tasked with serving truckers. And so, John, your comment about they turn and ask the trucker in the room, they turn and ask Jan, they turn and ask Scott, they turn and ask Aaron and go, how's this going to impact the truckers? And their first call is to us. And so I think that responsibility, as John said, when you get that question, if it's something that, that we can give an answer that we've been in contact and we know, fine, we'll give them the answer. But our first lifeline, our first phone a friend, if you will, is going to be to our council and some key members within that council, be it you, Mike, and your connections and the clientele that you serve, or if it's, the various carrier members of our association that, you reach out to all different sizes. You get a big one because they cover a lot of ground, or you get a small one because they may not cover as much ground, but they're going to be, intimately impacted more. So I think John's spot on that analysis. Our Council of Safety Supervisor for Missouri is one of the best things that we absolutely do as an association.
And Mike, can I also mention, if we were divided, how impossible it would be to do anything. I mean, it is so imperative that we not only take that direction, but that we all can sit down and have a conversation about whatever the issue is and ensure that we're the proper mouthpiece for our safety council. I mean, that's really how I view myself in this position, is that I have to be an effective mouthpiece for our safety council, not the other way around, where it's like, well, I just got to, be an effective mouthpiece for whatever the policy I think needs to work. If we don't have our safety council behind us, the whole thing falls apart. And that makes it the most important relationship for our organization, for me as a leader with this association here in Texas. And the best way we can serve, and I can serve the association and serve our membership, is to be an effective vocal point for our safety councils.
We spent last week together around the table with some of our colleagues from the Midwest. And I know during that discussion, one of the items, if you guys don't have a safety council, what do you do? And John and I kind of look at each other and kind of shrug our shoulders. I was like, I don't know how you would function without the input of a safety council and that level of connection with your membership. I think is critically important to doing our job, effectively at the Capitol, at the governor, wherever that discussion takes place. If you don't have that connection and backup with the safety council and the folks that are kind of the front lines, if you will. I mean, we talk about drivers being front lines. The safety director is kind of our connection to the driver the quickest is kind of how I view it as well. So, we were kind of dumbfounded sitting around because some of our colleagues in the association world don't have a safety director person connection on staff. They probably have a safety council, but I literally don't know what you would do without that person or that connection, because it's just, there's so much ground to cover.
Well, and I think to both of your points, I think if you've got membership within your respective states that you don't have, that the carrier is not sending someone to be involved in the Council of Safety Supervisors, that Safety Management Council, that's something that they should really strongly consider. There's benefit there that you guys have very well explained over the last few minutes to them as a motor carrier. They're heard that way. They're bringing that stuff in from their respective companies. That's something that's important to you all as an association. And I just appreciate that more than because I think there's a lot of times where that's what people want. That's what people need is to be heard, and whatever their issues are, that if there's an issue going on within the state or nationally, they want to have their voice heard. So I think that's an extremely important aspect of what we're talking about today. And before we move on, Kenny, I want to bring you in on this just kind of pose that same type of question to you. I'll just try to treat you as a guest today, since I'm the one asking the questions. You're so heavily involved with the TXTA Safety Management Council, just like I am here in Missouri. I want to hear your thought on how important that role is of that Safety Management Council that you're involved in, and what that means to you.
Well, Mike, for any of our listeners who may not even understand the concept of what we're talking about, it basically, if you, in very simplistic terms, imagine the safety director from trucking companies across the state coming together. We do it in Texas twice a year, and we'll have 200 people. Every one of them's a safety director from a trucking company that comes in. We do world-class training for them. So they get education, they get the fellowship, they network. But the correlation, what's important for me, particularly with our two guests that are on here today, is we never, ever have a meeting that John Esparza, the president and CEO of our state trucking association, doesn't come, speak to our members, give us a legislative update, talk about what's going on in the industry. And I mentioned in the introduction that he's both a friend and a mentor. He always leaves us with a word of encouragement. And so every time I look at both our Safety Management Council, our Texas Trucking Association, I think about there's really three components in my mind, or at least from my perspective, that work toward this goal of commercial motor vehicle safety. And that is the Texas Trucking Association as a complete entity being led by Mr. Esparza, the Safety Management Council, which works under the Texas Trucking Association. And then I don't know how it is in every state, but I can't imagine it would be effective if this wasn't true. But we have an excellent, and I mean excellent, working relationship with the regulatory agencies in our state, particularly the feds through the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, and our state law enforcement, which for us in Texas is Texas Department of Public Safety, State Highway Patrol. And Mr. Esparza is one of the reasons for that. He is such a great bridge builder and networker that he brings those three components. Again, the Texas Trucking Association, Safety Management Council, and our state and federal regulatory agencies to where we are all on one common path And we each have different jobs, different functions, but the goal is the same, and that is safety. And I don't want anybody to miss it. As Texans, we are fiercely proud of our state, to the point some people say we're arrogant about it. But there's one thing about our state we're not proud of, and I want you to hear what Mr. Esparza said. We have not had a deathless day in our state in 24 years that somebody in the state of Texas didn't die in a motor vehicle crash. That is not a statistic to be proud of. And we work every single day to be the one to break that. We want to end that, but we have an unending chain of death days on our state highways in Texas, and that is something we're not proud of, and we're working hard to stop.
And Kenny, I appreciate you sharing that, because I think with all three of you sharing this morning, it's the common theme, the common goal is safety. It's that's what we're here for. That's what we work so hard for. Sometimes we can get lost maybe in a task or, in a project or something like that. But in the end, that's what we're after is we don't want to have that 25th year of days where we don't have a death on our roadways, or we don't want to have, we want to have that statistic that says, hey, we're moving in the right direction, not the wrong direction when it comes to death on our public roadways. And I think all of those areas, and Kenny, the way you described how your association works in Texas were very similar in Missouri. Tom and his crew there in Jeff City have done an exceptional job just building bridges between the motor carrier industry, the regulatory agencies that govern us, the association, and really bringing us all together. And I think that's extremely important. I mean, as you mentioned, Kenny, if we have a safety meeting, a council of safety supervisors meeting, Tom is there, but our division administrator from the FMCSA is there. Our program manager for motor carrier services is there. Captain Kelly with the Missouri State Highway Patrol is there. They're there with our members and creating those relationships and building those relationships. So it's just extremely, extremely beneficial to be a part of those types of meetings and a part of those, and that's not just the monthly meetings that we have, but our safety conference that we have every spring, our fall conference that we have that's our leadership and our members that are leadership that is just meeting in the fall. It's not necessarily safety, but it's just our general fall conference that we hold. Those folks are there. Those relationships that Tom has built with those regulatory agencies, those folks come and they speak, and they're there. They're intermingling with their members, and I think that's extremely important. So, one of the last things I want to just kind of give you guys just an open-ended question and give you the mic on this to let you share your thoughts, and that is what you think is when we talk about benefits of being a part of an association, being a member of your association, being a member of the Council of Safety Supervisors or the Safety Management Council, what when you look at if you had somebody sitting in front of you that was a non-member, what would you tell them? These are the benefits to you that would mean the most. This is something that we do, and I know as we've talked over the last 30 minutes, you guys have expressed a lot of things where they can pull out those nuggets. But if you were just going to say, hey, this is the benefit to you, this is what we do, this is why we do it, and here's why you should come and be a part of this association that safety is in the forefront, what would you tell them, Tom?
Well, having sat in front of folks and made that pitch a couple of times, I think going in and knowing what their problem they're trying to solve is going to be a paramount. And when you look at safety, when you look at the various sizes of carriers and the various resources they have, I think through the pandemic, we saw a lot of growth in the industry with people getting in. It was real easy to get in. Capital was easy to get, all of that different stuff. And I think for those such as yourself and Kenny and folks in the industry that have been working safety for a while, you kind of saw some things going on that you're like, this isn't good. And I know that we had several attorneys in the area that were advising folks in ways to get in And one of the key factors was get involved with your association, get involved with the safety council, put yourself around people that try to do things the right way, and it will make you better. And I think, like John said, we were able to get the statistics from ATRI, and it says, hey, statistically, this is what's happening. And, having been involved in several different types of associations, having, married to somebody that is involved in an association world, I think the one thing that is really unique, gratifying, and get a little strength from it as well is when you look at our membership, who, at the end of the day, one member would just as soon put another member out of business and take over their clients and take over their hauling. But when they get in our safety council meetings and that competitor maybe had worked for them in the past, maybe hadn't worked for them in the past, they ask them a question, and you just sit there and you watch the interchange about somebody trying to help a fellow safety director out with their problem, agnostic to whoever it is. I think that is very, very powerful. And so when you're sitting in front of somebody who, let's assume they're interested in becoming a member. There's people that are never going to be members, and we understand that as well. But for folks that are interested in becoming a member and are interested in becoming better as a carrier and a safer carrier, our offer of, hey, you can become a member and become a part of this group that's going to make you better. Here's the proof. Take a look at this. I think that's very powerful and a very, that's a great leave behind for us that are going out trying to attract new members.
Tom, wise words. And I would only echo those by also saying on my end that, what goes on in my head is, how can you not be a member, is the first thing I think. But then how it has to come out with the prospect is, I guarantee you, anybody that's running a trucking company in the state of Texas, and I know this goes further than beyond, but it's a statement that I can make. If you are running a trucking company in the state of Texas, there is something frustrating you about what you're doing, and what is a challenge to you in meeting the successes that you believe you can meet in this state. I can almost guarantee you it's regulatory. There is something about government that is causing you pain, that is creating headaches for you. And it may be very localized, which I can help you with. It might be within our state, which I can help you with. It might be a federal, which I can help you with. I will be your cheapest employee that you can hire to work for you. And let me show you a book of the changes just over the last several years of where we have been effective. And what I want is for you to be in the room and help us communicate, to help us create policy, to provide us input. And then further, I'm going to ask you to get involved in your community, because I may know some of the folks that represent you, but I want them to get to know you. And if you have a great relationship with them, man, we're 10 steps ahead. We're really going to help each other. But if you don't, I'm going to create a path through the Trucking Association that will provide you a voice in your community. And by the way, the louder that you are and the more frequent that you're engaged in your community, the more effective I'm going to be. So I need you. There's no question about that. But at the same time, I want to show how you need me to do the work that I'm doing as a team up here, and as a larger organization, as a network of professionals who think a lot like you. And by the way, when we meet often, it's which is frequent, the networking aspect of that, I know that you will take away items that I could never put on paper. And that's the beauty of that. Through those relationships, the cream rises to the top. And we like to think that if you as trucking companies, you as trucking professionals on our highways, if you get together and you share your successes, your failures, your challenges, we're going to do something about it. It's, I don't have to sit here and wait for my phone to ring to tell me, hey, John, I got a problem. because it happens so often that it's just a tablet of here are areas that we've got to work to improve, and let's continue to communicate with our safety professionals, with our leaders within the association, within our regulatory and legislative leadership, what those things are, so we can stay on top of it. Man, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and it always will. So we got to continue to keep squeaking, and we need your help to continue to do that.
You guys have illustrated so well that partnership and that relationship between the industry and the association is just extremely important. There's benefits that go both ways for sure. And Kenny, Jim, you guys have any other questions that you want to visit with our two guests about?
I just want to thank them both once again. I'm so honored and proud and privileged to have both these men on our podcast. And I know our listeners will benefit from this. And, I want to encourage any of the motor carriers that are our listeners, if you're not involved with your state association, wherever you happen to be, and we know we have listeners across the country, we encourage you to do that. I'm selfish. If we're here in Texas, I want you to be a part of the Texas Trucking Association. Mike, I know you feel the same way about the Missouri Trucking Association, but wherever a motor carrier is stationed, I want to just encourage them to get involved in their association.
I'm really thankful there's a rewind function on these podcasts, because I'm still taking notes off of what these guys said. And so I'm sure I missed some of the golden nuggets that they gave us today. So I really appreciate you guys coming on today. You made a couple references about midway through that just really echoed with me in my military background. I love that you're including a trucker in the decision-making and the thought process and the planning. In my old world, that's called listening to the boots on the ground, where the rubber meets the road. And all these policies can come down, and if we're not explaining the why of the change or the why the company's made a policy, we can receive friction when it comes to implementing our job, hauling that load. So having those drivers in the room, I think, is an excellent practice. It is something that every trucking company can learn from that and add to their management philosophy. So thanks for sharing that.
Well, to our two guests, before we get off here, I want to give you an opportunity. Any parting thoughts, words of wisdom you want to leave with us before we let you have the rest of your day back?
Well, I'll just say I appreciate the opportunity, Kenny, Mike, and Jim, Amanda. Thank you guys for inviting us. Any chance I get to be on a panel with the esteemed Mr. John Esparza, I mean, it's going to be a good day. He's my brother from another mother. I mean, we love each other like family. I really do admire this guy quite a bit. And Mike, you're the best, man. I appreciate you as a person, as a man, as somebody that it's no secret. You and I've talked before in the past, and I couldn't get you lured to the good side, but you're still doing good on your side of the table as well. So, but no, I appreciate the way you all approach this topic. I appreciate the way you guys approach the trucking industry. I think we have minded ideas and goals, and I think that's the key for the listeners as well. Is you don't have to be scared of trying to do the right thing. If you're working towards the right thing, safety isn't a gotcha. Pulling into a way station isn't a gotcha. Getting stopped roadside isn't a gotcha. If you have the right mindset about what you're trying to accomplish, and getting everybody home safely is the ultimate goal. So thank you all for continuing to work towards that goal and for having us on.
Tom, and as Tom said, I'd echo, we're trucking fraternity brothers. We came into these positions with our associations at almost the same time. To this day, our families get together outside of trucking, and that's how much love and respect I have for Tom, and how important it is, I think, that we all as states communicate and work together in a way that improves our industry. back when I was in state government, I was in a wonderful position working for our governor, and I often advocated for different areas of the state on his behalf. And when we had issues that came up with licensed plumbers, as an example, well, the governor would say, get them all in here. Let's sit them down. I need a solution. And if far too often, if they couldn't come together in a day full of arguing about what they believed needed to be the position that we take, they didn't get anything done. And at the end of the day, somebody with bars on their shoulder, Jim, made that decision for them. But if those NCOs come in and say, this is what we want, then the officers can go, I have 100% confidence that we can do this. And that's what this world to me is all about. And I, Tom and I come from a proud heritage of trucking professionals, of military folks. And I think we operate our businesses that way. And I certainly look around this office and think of this association as a campaign. And my experience has been in campaigns prior to taking this position. And every year is a campaign to improve the safety of our highways, to ensure there are no unintended consequences on our trucking community, and to three, ensure that we're there for those members of the legislature who are not trucking professionals. It's wonderful to have a coalition of folks that might actually be. We've got one that's running in North Texas that I'm very excited about because he runs a trucking company, and we're going to support him. The more like-minded trucking people that we can get in positions of service to their community, the stronger an industry we will be, the safer an industry will be, because they'll listen to us. And lastly, again, not without folks like Kenny, with good people in our office like Lance and Dana, and the rest of this support team that I'm very blessed to have, that we work every day to continue to improve not just ourselves, but what we can provide for our industry and be a strong association. And our goal is, when the governor thinks about support, or any elected official thinks about support or friends within the business community, that they think of trucking right there in the top 5. And that's where we want to be.
Well said. Well, Mr. Esparza, Mr. Crawford, I speak for all of us here when I say thank you very much for joining us today, for sharing your passion for this great industry that we're fortunate enough to work in. I include myself in that as well. I feel very fortunate to be a part of this industry. And as always, I want to thank all of our listeners out there who joined with us. You all are the best. Thank you. And if you're not a member, as Kenny said, if you're not a member of your state association or some of these national associations, I highly recommend you check into that, regardless of what state you're in, where you find yourself in this country. Check into your state association, see what they're about, have the conversations. Just like Tom and John have shared today, there's others out there that you can sit down with, you can visit with, and see what they're about. See if that's for you. If you're interested in surrounding yourself with good, strong, safe motor carriers and a bunch of good folks that care deeply about safety, I think that's a place for you. So I'd highly recommend you check that out. And for Kenny and for Jim, I'm Mike Bohan. Be safe out there, everybody, and catch us next time right here on Driving the Line.
That's all the time we have for this episode of Driving the Line, the Pursuit of Safety. We hope you enjoyed our discussion, and thank you for listening. You can rate, review, and subscribe to Driving the Line, the Pursuit of Safety on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any other app you're using. You can also follow Marsh McLennan Agency on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Until next time, thanks again for listening. Drive safely, everyone.